Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey everyone, how are you doing out there? So let's start today's show with a quote. Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Martin Luther King Jr. So if the term brave women at work were in the dictionary, and I'm thinking, why isn't it there? LOL. Laughing out loud. I'm literally laughing out loud. Robyn Malone would be part of the definition. I had the pleasure of meeting Robyn through a dear friend and colleague, and we hit it off immediately. So, as you're going to learn during our show today, Robyn has done some scary things professionally and personally, or at least I'm deeming them scary, including following her heart and leaving her established community, her people in New York City, to move across, at least to the middle of the country, to be with her now husband in Chicago. She didn't know. It worked out, but she didn't know. She followed her heart. She reestablished her entire personal and professional community after the move while maintaining her community in New York. Again, scary. She recognized that even though she didn't plan on being an entrepreneur, that a business was building itself around her. So she took note, she listened, and she has built a thriving boutique public relations agency. She is also not afraid to be a truth teller. It's in her values on her company's site. And she is not afraid to be a truth teller in her industry because she has decided to stick to her values. And so much more was shared during our conversation today. So Robyn was like a jolt of motivation to my system and a beautiful reminder that we can do things that scare us. And so I'm now wondering how I'm going to stretch myself next after this conversation. Anyone want to go with me to Bali? Well, just kidding. Well, maybe not. So we'll see. You know what? I've never done retreats out of the country. Who knows what the future holds? Who knows? Anyway, here is more about Robyn. Robyn Malone is the executive officer and chief partner officer of RJ Communications, a boutique health, tech, and wellness PR agency. Robyn's communications career includes experience across various sectors, industries, therapeutic areas, and brands. Her passion for health, however, led her to focus on work that has the potential to impact lives. A storyteller at heart, Robyn spent her career in healthcare PR and communications, launching familiar healthcare brands and partnering with global powerhouses like Pfizer and Procter & Gamble. Robyn has worked extensively in corporate and brand communications in the consumer health and pharmaceutical sectors, often managing large, multinational, and multi-regional teams to develop and execute successful campaigns that deliver tangible business results. Some of these campaigns that she's worked on include You Don't Know Jack About MS, a public awareness campaign featuring newly diagnosed MS patient Jack Osborne, and Relieve My Fever, a children's contest featuring Angie Harmon to relaunch Pfizer's children's Advil. The integrated communications-led effort garnered more than 135 million media impressions in top-tier print and broadcast media, including Fox and Friends, The Rachel Ray Show, Parade, and People. Today, RJ Communications works with a range of clients ranging from tech startups to large, well-established multinational companies, using their experience in all things health to tell health stories and grow healthy brands. As I mentioned when we kicked off our show today, a native New Yorker turned Chicagoan, Robyn marries heart, head, and humanity to tell the stories that compel people to action. So, if Brave Woman at Work has helped you personally or professionally, be sure to share it with a colleague, a family member, or a friend. And of course, your ratings and reviews help the show continue to gain traction and grow and get in the hands of more women, which is exactly what I want to do. And if you've already left a rating and review, I thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. You made my day. So, also, if you haven't yet downloaded any of the freebies from my website, check them out at bravewomanatwork.com. I've created 3 just for you: 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and getting paid, 10 negotiation tips. And they're workbook style guides, and they have places to write where I want it to be applicable for you, that you can actually do something with the information. And of course, you can complete them on your own time. And again, did I mention they are free? So download those today at bravewomanatwork.com. Finally, I do have a spot or two for private coaching. So that would be one on one style with yours truly. We can work through any of your professional career kind of goals, issues, any barriers you're facing. So, how the process starts, if you've never worked with a coach before, is you go to my website again, bravewomanatwork.com. You click on the button, schedule a discovery call. It is a 30-minute, completely complimentary call. Number one, I want to hear all about your career history and what your goals are. What are some of the struggles you've had? And then I can share how coaching works a little bit more deeply, and we can see if it's a fit for you. And that's it. That is all. That is it. It's as simple as that. So I would just welcome you, if you are interested, you're curious, schedule time with me, and we can have that conversation at your leisure. All right. So let's welcome Robyn to the show. Hey, Robyn, welcome to Brave Woman at Work. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I am so good. And everyone, we were having such a fun time. We almost we forgot to like hit record. So here we are.
Great.
For real. Okay. So let's start at the very top. Everybody knows that listens that I love a good story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background story and how you've gotten to where you are?
I am a native New Yorker, one of the few proud and brave who was born and raised there and lived there for all of my life until a couple of years ago when I moved to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Professionally, I've a lifelong public relations, communications, and marketing person. I've done that for my entire career, starting off at really, really big agencies, and eventually I moved into my own to do my own. And I took my business with me when I moved to Chicago.
What was it like? I have to ask you, what was it like moving from New York City to Chicago? We talked about this last time, but I want you to share with the listeners because, I mean, Chicago is not New York. New York is not Chicago. So what was that like?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was really naive. I was really naive because I'm thinking, oh, it's a major city, right? So the story is I met my husband, now husband, but he lived in Chicago. I moved to Chicago, we got married. I moved to Chicago to get married, so I should be
Okay.
clear. And honestly, had he lived in like Paducah, I'd be like, I don't think this is gonna work, dude. I don't, that's not. But because Chicago, and I've been here many times, and great city, I was really like, okay, yeah. I mean, it wasn't my first choice because my life is and has always been in New York. Um, Moving here, I was naive in thinking that this was like truly, truly apples to apples, and it just isn't. It just isn't in terms of city. I think what Chicago has a great food scene, great social scene, but it's really kind of clustered in one space,
Mm-hmm.
in one area. And it doesn't extend to other parts of the city. And I think that that's a shame. And it also, and so I feel like a social desert in some Chicago places and spaces, right? Um, and funny story, I was kind of talking to this about a good with a good friend of mine, and he said, Robyn, you're from New York. Like there's no place that you're ever gonna move to that's like it. It's like you are super spoiled. And I was like, I'm super spoiled because Chicago is a great city. but I don't have, forgive me. These are champagne problems for sure, but I can't like roll out of bed to my favorite brunch place on the corner or roll out of bed, to my favorite bar around, up the street. You just get so used to that being a part of your life. And then I think the other thing is sort of culturally, I find the social scene kind of one note. And so
Mm,
I'm hungry to be able to experience a range of um, social social communities as I continue to, build that. But I like it. I'm learning to love it.
okay. So because in New York, you said last time, I mean, you had quite a tribe in New York City. I mean, you had all of your posse, your people, right? And so what was their reaction to you saying, hey everybody, hey y'all, I'm going to Chicago.
It was honestly, the Chicago was secondary to you're marrying who and doing what? Like it that was so marrying the dude was the headline.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was the lead, right? The moving to Chicago was definitely, the supporting paragraph.
Okay.
Um I'd been super single for so long. And so this idea, and then before that, I was planning a move out of the country. I was planning to move to Mexico City.
Oh wow, we didn't talk about that. So you were planning just because? Why Mexico City?
I had kind of like I was pretty frustrated with the US. And I was like, now's the time. Like I'm single. I just got me and my two little dogs. I'm an entrepreneur, so I can work from anywhere. And I spent 6 weeks in Mexico City doing recon basically, like trying to see if I can build community. Do I enjoy it? Can I get around? That kind of thing. It was so weird for me at first, to be honest, because I've never had to build a community. My community is organic. And I've always known community to be organic. It just is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was my existence. And so moving here without anyone almost that didn't live in my house. And if you think about it, so many people build community through the workplace, going into the office every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we just don't have that anymore. So these sort of organic and authentic
It's
communities that
true.
just kind of come to pass around you or around me, there wasn't the opportunity for that. And then if you layer on the fact that where my husband lived at the time was super residential, nothing going on, tumbleweed rolling down the streets, like there was just not even a place to kind of go and like, grab a cup of coffee. I'd have to get in the car and drive. So
Mm.
all of that was a bit of a hindrance. But I will tell you, he was fantastic. He is an introvert, and but he knew I needed community for any number of reasons, right? I needed a space in life that existed outside of him
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago. I also I feed off of community more than he does. And so in the beginning, he was doing all the things that he would never do. Like he gets, invited to these events and parties and he would always turn them down. And now we were going to all of them. And then, but he was doing it for me, right? He was totally like, I want you to start meeting people um and he was super encouraging. Like we threw a couple of parties. He was super encouraging about like don't work in the house, like go find here's a list of places you should go. Like
Wow.
he was really really like really pushing me, like kicking me out of the nest. I'm a member of Chief, and luckily Chief has a flagship. They have a clubhouse here.
Oh,
um, they were a true lifeline in terms of building my community. In fact, he would like make me, he was like, you need to be working from Chief twice a week. So he was the one who was like kind of, kicking
pushing
me
you
off,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
pushing me off the cliff a bit. And it really made a huge difference. And it still was a little bit awkward, right? Because this is not exactly what happened, but I kind of felt like I'd be like, "Hi, I'm Robyn. Want to be my friend?"
It's true as like adults, like it's kind of like you got to do that.
Oh, am I setting up adult play dates? Like, what? This is weird. It was so weird at first, and it was uncomfortable. And then but um, luckily, I was able to build this amazing community here of like I've got my tribe here now.
Oh,
Um,
so cool.
it's so cool. It's so cool. It's great. So um I had to be all of that to say, the very long-winded way of saying I had to be intentional about it, and it was uncomfortable.
So if we have transplants to Chicago, or let's say we have natives that are listening, right? It doesn't matter where you live, it could be anywhere in the world. So I'm hearing a key takeaway is if you want to build community as an adult, you have to be intentional and kind of like move through the discomfort.
You do. There just isn't any way around it. And maybe it's not as uncomfortable for other people as it is or it was for me, but there's no way around it. I'm not going to get there if I just, sit there and hope someone thinks I look nice. you know, and then especially, so there's this other thing. I wonder if it's my New Yorker sensibility, but when I'm out alone, like if I'm sitting in a bar or if I'm having dinner or in a coffee shop or whatever, and almost all the time I'm working, I've got the armor on. And
Oh,
that
wow.
I've got
Okay.
I've got the I'm sort of in this space armor on. Sometimes that is by design and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a reflex. And so I don't necessarily show up as welcoming as I feel like I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that was a learning for me too. Like because I've got the headphones on, I'm like hunched over, kind
You're
of
in it. Yeah.
in it. Again, sometimes that's necessary because I'm doing whatever. But other times it's just because I'm there by myself and I need to do something. So like I'll work or I'll, listen to a podcast or something like that. And then that even there's the literal sort of armor in the form of like my headphones and my computer, but there's also sort of the energy armor,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? That I was holding on to even when I didn't want to.
You've just really taught me something. So everybody there, I like to kind of like highlight what people can either take notes on or what they can take from it. So I think there's something there. So be intentional and be willing to be uncomfortable to build your tribe, whether it's at work or whether it's personally or what have you, right? Because even at work, if you work for a large or small company, sometimes you'll find like the best of friends or the best of colleagues, a mentor, a sponsor. I mean, we talk about mentorship and sponsorship. It's the same thing. It's like, will
Yeah,
you be my mentor? You have to be brave enough to actually have those tough conversations and like set up play dates for yourself, like as an adult.
so you want cookies and juice? I mean,
Kind of.
yeah,
The other thing you've just taught me, which I want to highlight, is the fact that I've had throughout my whole life, like people will say, I don't know. And maybe you'll be like, no, you're not, like when I tell you this, Robyn, but people are like, you're kind of intimidating, right? And I'm like, really? And it's because I'm a hyper focused person, like naturally. So you've just taught me that I kind of have like the F you on my forehead, like, don't mess with me kind of deal. So I think the other piece is like make yourself approachable and like
exactly
really
right.
be mindful of your energy, like energetic management, right? Because if
Yep,
you're in a closed hunch stance or you are like giving people the eye of like don't mess with me, like we're animals, like we can tell.
100%. It's the energy armor. Like, and I didn't know that. I knew it was a thing because and again, a lot of times it's intentional. That's, years of me taking the subway in New York and just
True.
like having that, like being in my space and, you know, and then also building this business alone, and then like and a lot of times just wanting to get out of the house, and then I'll go pull up to a bar and like have a glass of wine while I'm working. The energy was I'm enjoying this wine, but I'm also working, and I kind of want to not be
like, don't mess with me right now. I'm kind of
A
busy.
little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. Like I just want to focus.
Yeah.
Um, but in the times, there many times I didn't want that. That wasn't my intention, especially through the process of building my community in Chicago. But I still had that energy armor on.
Okay. So let's before, because I do want to talk about your business because I think your website, by the way, is just absolute badass. I love it. I've read it like from top to bottom. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And it's really cool that you built your own business. But before we go there, how did you like take the armor off? Because there might be women listening
Ooh,
going like, "Oh, that's cool, Robyn and Jen. Like, well, I've got the armor too." But how do you remove it?
practice,
Practice.
practice. It's a lot of hunched over computer posture. Maybe
Yes.
no earphones. Like there's just some simple things, right? The other is eye contact and smiles. Someone comes in, sits next to me at the bar. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's the like again, I had to practice that because, I'm and to your point, I've been told that I'm intimidating. Um, I always push back and say, I'm not intimidating, you're intimidated. That's different.
Woohoo. That's awesome. I like that. I like that. I've never heard that one.
That's different. But also it's that energy that can make you feel unapproachable, which is unfortunate.
Yes, it's
Which
true.
is which is unfortunate, right? Because it kind of isn't fair. But that's the reality.
That's the nature of what we live in, right? So
That's the nature
ever
of the
yes, before we transition everybody. So just I think I'd be mindful of your energetic armor, and I'm going to bring it to work here, right? So how are you sitting? How are you sitting in a meeting? Like what's your body language? Are your arms closed? Like are you closed off to the world? Like and it may sound silly, but all of these things matter. They matter in building a community. They matter in how your management perceives you. It matters in like if you get a promotion because as animals, as part of the animal kingdom, we perceive what's not spoken. And so I really appreciate you sharing that you had to take the armor off.
I did. I did. I had to do the thing that I don't like. I don't enjoy. It makes me feel vulnerable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I had to do that thing. And that potentially put myself in an embarrassing situation. I had to do that thing. And it was just a muscle that I absolutely had to flex.
And I'm assuming now, yes, it's not your favorite thing, but you're probably a lot better at it.
Yeah, because I recognize it. If I find myself in that zone, I can snap myself out of it.
Oh, that's so cool. And it's probably faster than it was before. Like before, when you
Absolutely.
first started, you were probably like reluctant, like, no, like
Yeah,
screw
my
them.
spine is goofy, like, you know,
Your spine is happier for it. Like by sitting on straight.
like smiles were goofy, and then I was like, oh, this person absolutely thinks I'm a serial killer. Great, like yeah,
That's
yeah.
so
So
funny. Oh
yeah,
my God. That's so fun. Okay, so let's talk about your beautiful brand, your beautiful business, RJ Communications, or we will call you RJC. So you told me before, it happened organically. It's not like you like put the business plan together and like came to Chicago, met the man, like trusted your intuition, and then we're like, I'm going to start a business. So how did it come to be?
so I was consulting.
Mm-hmm.
I started consulting, and in PR and communications, especially agency spaces. And I've been in the business for a really long time, so I had good contacts and good relationships. So I was just doing some like freelance consulting work, all good. And then it just kind of happened around me. Like I had clients who said, well, we'll just go with you. And I was like, wait up, wait, what? Huh? Wait. Like just an agency kind of sprung up around me. And then I had to retrofit. Like I had to do all the infrastructure and all the other stuff that I was not
Wow.
prepared to do in the absolute wrong order. So
Mm.
yeah, it definitely happened organically.
So when you say it came in the wrong order, you didn't have the plan, you didn't have the infrastructure. You just like one day had business and you're like, oh crap, I got to do something about
Yeah.
this.
Oftentimes in our business, PR agencies, they hire out to consultants and freelancers a ton, often because they're, understaffed, or there's a specific expertise they need, or whatever it is. They do it a ton. I did it when I was at various agencies. And so it's enough work for one person. And I had a few clients, and that was fine. Then I started to get more work, and I realized I couldn't take it on by myself. So I had to
Mm,
bring in someone else. And then
hmm
that kept happening. And so I was like, okay, like I've got to actually put some structure around this. I've got to
hmm
think about who we are, who I want to be. Is this a journey I really want to go on, right? Because it's one thing when you're a freelancer, you are responsible for an N of one.
Mm, it's true.
So if you don't get it right, then that's on you. But when you are building out a company, there are other people who you're responsible for. And
Hmm
I 4 years ago, it was the farthest thing from my mind. I wasn't thinking about being an employer.
So, I mean, we talk a lot about confidence on this show and imposter syndrome. So, I mean, you strike me as a strong and empowered woman, right? But were there moments when you were starting this business where you were like, I don't have it, or I feel like an imposter, or like, talk to us a little bit about that. There was a little bit of a journey, I'm assuming, on confidence building as you've been going along.
It's not just in the beginning. It happens, depending on the week you get. Honestly, that's the reality of us being humans, but especially women and entrepreneurs. It is There are days 100%, certainly in the beginning, where I just didn't know let me tell you a funny story. I did not know that I had to keep the books. So when
I
I go,
gotta tell you, I sorry to interrupt you. I hate the books, by the way. It's
oh,
not my
okay, no,
thing.
no, 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 I don't do it. I farm it out. I
Oh,
outsource
good.
it because it's better for society if I don't try to do it. Right? Um, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know. And so I remember, shuffling over to my handy dandy tax person who I worked with for years, filed my taxes like, when I was a regular W-2 kind of person. And she says to me, Robyn, your books. And I was like, what books? What are you talking about? And it was I don't know what you're saying. Was I supposed to have read a book before I came to you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, apparently, right? And so, like, it's a silly story, but it was like, and it was, believe me, I never made that mistake again. But those are the kinds of things I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. That was a time where I felt really like, God, you're an idiot. How did you not
Mm,
know this? How did you get yourself into this pickle?
mm,
Right? And that happens. It happens, but it isn't you in my opinion, it isn't unique to entrepreneurs. I think women tend to carry um a lot of it self-inflicted, a lot of it not, a lot of burden that we
hmm
feel responsible for. And then when something, the dots don't connect in the way that we envisioned, then we're down on ourselves.
hmm It's
Or
it's totally true.
yeah. So uh, I can't say that there's any particular thing that's different about how I've experienced it, to be honest. And for me, I'm a little bit better at managing it.
So yeah, for a minute there, I want to hear. So you had that probably heinous experience. I know that you've never made that mistake again because I'm sure it was painful because they're like, well, you have to recreate all this and you owe, and you're like, what?
I had to pay the accountant to do all of that work, which was thousands of dollars. It was
Yes.
it was a mess.
It was bad news. And so How did you said, I'm a little bit better in managing it, right? So what do you do when, that voice, like probably I call it, mean girl, like that negative side of you, the negative, talker and Robin being like, you're an idiot, you're stupid. Like, what do you do?
I'll be honest and say that again, I haven't kind of cracked the code on what specifically to
Yeah.
do, but I'll tell you what's worked for me. Again, leaning into that community, that like
Yeah.
my global in air quotes community, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the folks who are nearest and dearest to me are, and everyone has that person who is like the kick in the butt person,
Mm-hmm.
or the person who's like, but that's human. Like, don't do that to yourself. That person, um,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few of those, and leaning into them, and it took me a while to do that too, even though they're my community, because I felt I was embarrassed. I felt
Mm-hmm.
I was being vulnerable. I was sharing something that was so deeply personal. It took me a long time to be able to do that. And I still struggle with it sometimes, but I'm much better about like, I need the kick in the butt. Like I can be a tough love needing person. Right. And then other times, like I like the kind of friends that say, do you want to know what I think? Or am I listening? Because I do that.
Mm. Okay. All right. So I'm hearing like in your tribe, everyone, like get your truth tellers out, get your but also, it's tough love, but it's also the other side. It's like the iron fist and the velvet glove, right? So there's compassion where they're saying like, hey, you're human. You made a mistake, right? There's love there. There's compassion there to help you get out of your funk. I want to talk about your values because yes, every company has values, but I wanted to bring this up like just intuitively. I knew we needed to because I know that you're a woman of your word. I just know it. And so there's many values, like not many, but there's like a core set, but there's a couple that I wanted to call out. The first one, kind of which dovetails what we're talking about, is truth teller. And so, why is that important to you and in your business?
And it's the simplest thing to me. How can how can I build a relationship if I'm not telling the truth? I don't like I fundamentally don't understand that, right? So for me, um, I always tell my team, how can they trust you when the news is good if they can't trust you when it's bad,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
right? So the truth telling is so critical, so critical. I'm always gonna say, and I'm speaking in the context of business, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it extends from me, but in the context of the work that we do when we're dealing with partners and clients, and I'll say, listen, we didn't do that well.
Mm.
We
You'll
didn't do
actually just tell them. You'll just
yeah,
say, we didn't.
like what are you gonna do? Like
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Right? Like I just I don't I personally have a hard time dealing with personalities that are my love language is accountability.
Okay.
And so this is so again, the values of the company very much born of my own personal values.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we don't do this well, if we what the bed, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, look, this is what happened. This is why it happened. Let me tell you how to fix it, how we're going to fix it, and how we're going to prevent it from happening again. This is what went wrong. That is how you build relationships and trust over time. So much of my career before I was able to build it in my own vision, I was realizing someone else's vision. And all the times they were rounding the edges of the truth because they didn't want to make the client angry and
Mm-hmm.
admit that humans are fallible and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't believe in that. I don't believe that. I think you have to, I want you to trust me. I want you to trust me that I'm going to tell you this is not good. I'm also going to tell you you shouldn't do that. I could take your money, but you shouldn't do that.
That is so good because isn't this sad? And I'm not trying to be all like, it's a terrible world, blah, blah, blah. That's a whole other podcast. But like, how many businesses have you gone to that have been that truthful? Not many. Not
No,
many. Because they're
no.
more worried about, we want the client to be happy, like people pleasing, or we want to get paid, or just like shove it under the rug. They don't need to know about this, that kind of
It's
stuff.
the money. And I get it. Listen, money, we all need money,
Yeah.
right? But trust. So I built my business on relationships that I've had for years. Trust. I'm going to tell the truth, and it's really, really critical. That doesn't mean the message is delivered appropriately and we have the right kinds of conversations, but it's always the truth. So
Mm.
I'm gonna tell you, like, this strategy is not what you should be doing. We don't think so as counselors, but if this is what you've landed on, um, we can help you execute, but we don't believe in this, and here's why.
So good and so rare and so refreshing. So I wanted people to hear that RJC is really a
Yeah.
truth-telling company. The other one I wanted to
At
bring
our
in,
peril sometimes, right? It gets me in it's
it
it
gets
gets
you in trouble. You might lose clients over it. You know,
we
oh yeah,
definitely lost opportunities because I said, "Mm-mm."
yeah, but you know what? You can go to bed at night being like, I was true to my values versus like, and you know what? There's a certain faith, right? Talk about fear, talk about lack of confidence. Like, I'm sure there have been times, right? Not naming specific clients, of course, but like where you could have used that extra, for the business, right? Where you were like, oh, where you had, the angel and the devil on your shoulders going like, well, we could just round the edges, like we could get paid and that could be a handsome sum towards the bottom line. But you're like, no, this is not who I am and not the company's value.
It's not the company values. And let's just be honest, like the bottom line there is, if that is how it's garbage in, garbage out, if that is how they're walking in the door, that means that's probably the relationship. If the strategy is flawed, you're not going to get the results you think you're going to get. And so we're going to be blamed for that too. So some of it
True.
is a lot of it is really centered on our values, but the other is just plain old common sense. Like, this is not going to, 1 plus 1 is not going to equal 2 for you, and you are going to be mad at us.
Yeah, so you're gonna you're gonna lose. Like there's a double-edged sword there everywhere you turn if you really think about
I
it.
could take the money and rub and run and do a cash grab, but that never works. It never works ever.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. It's like just thinking from your line of work, with what you do. The other value I wanted to call out because inclusiveness, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Like those are very buzzwords. And some people just like have a program and they just check the box. I don't feel that from your company. I feel that this is like what you live and breathe. So, why is inclusiveness so important to you and your company?
So I have lots and lots of thoughts about sort of the hubbub of, around DEI and DIB. I don't even allow my team to use the word diversity.
Wow. Okay.
I don't like it. Um, and the reason is not because it's not what we want, but that's sort of an outcome. What I want is inclusivity and equity. Diversity is the outcome of that. So I
Mm,
want to manage to, if I get the inclusivity and the equity right, then the diversity will come and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, it's not a thing that you're managing to. Does that make sense? So diversity,
yes.
so when you're managing to diversity, you're putting a lot of Black and brown people on your website. I'm not interested in that. I'm not.
Okay.
So
So
that's
you're interested in the include. So it's like diversity. It's like I'm seeing like a math problem, and everyone, I'm terrible at math, but like and like diversity is the end of the equation. It's not the beginning.
what's going to happen organically if you're if you're calibrating to inclusivity and equity and belonging. That's what's going to happen organically. But that's not what people are calibrated to, singing the song of diversity, because if they've got enough Black faces and brown faces so that they can check a box. And so, because that's what has been the uh, overwhelming uh, response for companies and organizations when they lean into diversity, it just has become so bastardized, and it's also calibrated wrong. You should not be worried about that.
Mm. So give me an example on like inclusivity, like in your work or how that works for you. So when you guys, and this is a whole other podcast, but just like a teaser, like how does that play out?
Let me think about it really. So the first thing is the way that we hire and find talent.
Okay.
So, and that's an easy one, right? And
Yeah.
just take a step back, not to be Captain Obvious. I'm a Black woman.
A beautiful one at that. Thank you.
You are very sweet. And so I would be remiss if, at least I feel that way. I would be remiss if I weren't thinking about how do I lift up um, the community and communities of people who have been ignored and not lifted.
Mm-hmm.
Starting there, so I start from the hiring and how we engage people. So we have a couple of people on our team who are wonderful and eager, but need some more road behind them and experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to take a chance on those guys because I know if you are Black or brown and you're inexperienced, you are really, really in a bad place.
Mm-hmm. So you will take a chance on that when maybe someone else wouldn't because they don't have either the experience or the street cred. You're going to take a chance.
Yep.
But you're giving them an opportunity. You mean, again, that doesn't mean that they're going to succeed. It's up to them to sink or swim, right? It's up to them to put the work in.
I mean, it's a little bit, but that's not exclusive to me. Like any place you go, you got to put the work in,
True.
right? But the difference is I am making the choice to invest in that person's development and training.
And that's got to feel really good because you don't have to do that.
So that's one way. The other way is we are discerning about our clients. We're discerning about the partners that we work with. We want to understand how they show up in terms of inclusive practices, inclusive mindsets, our um, inclusive language.
Okay.
Is it like if it's again, I've got my quibbles for sure with DEI and DIB practices and programs and all of those things. I've got my quibbles, but I understand their role and I value their role. That said, do you partner feel the same way? And if you don't, we're probably not a good match, and that's okay.
Oh, so and again, you like kind of filtering out by your values.
A little bit, and some of it is gut. Like let me make no
Yeah.
mistake. I'm not like doing a Dun and Bradstreet, and I'm not doing all of that.
Me either.
Some of it is gut, and you some of that stuff kind of filters out in conversation. I've definitely walked away for from some opportunities that I just said I don't think this is a fit, but I wish you luck.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, you really walk your talk. That's why I knew I wanted to talk about some of your values. So thank you for being so open and honest about it. So we talked the first time, and you've talked about it already. So we can kind of, as we're kind of rounding out our conversation, we talked about moving out of our comfort zone.
Mhm.
That's what you talked about with community is you just were stretching out and being uncomfortable in your own zone. So what is maybe something you've done lately that's pushed you out of your comfort zone? Anything that comes to mind?
Yes, I had to have a tough conversation with someone I work with. I won't say whether it's client
Yeah.
or I'd have a tough conversation with someone I work with, and I was dreading it.
Yeah, it had to be hard.
And I had that thing in the pit of my stomach. I had anxiety, the whole bit. I was really, really dreading it. But it was an important conversation for me and for them to kind of set some levels around our working relationship and how it needs to move forward. Um, one of the most not no, that's not true. It's not one of the most uncomfortable conversations I've had, but one of the more recent uncomfortable conversations I've had that I had to drive. So I've got to say, okay, we need to talk, right? Which is,
Hmm.
unto itself. Um,
Makes everyone like really scary and have their dukes
right,
up.
okay, what's coming?
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, neither of us were worse for the wear.
Good for you.
Right. And I do that to myself and I recognize it. Like I've got all these things building up, my anxiety just goes awry. And now I'm kind of like, when ultimately I'm just having a conversation.
Yeah, but this happens to everybody, right? So we all like put this monstrous like tiger, like I'm gonna get killed. Like the story we craft is insane. We're so imaginative, but then when it comes down to it, often, not always, sometimes it is as bad as we think, but most of the time it's not as bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I would say 90% of the time, it's not nearly as bad as you got it played out in your head and your heart.
Mm-hmm. But you did it. How did you feel on the other side of the conversation?
Great, great.
Probably free. Like you were like, oh,
Me, like I was able to let that anxiety go. Um, because where the conversation landed was, as optimal an outcome as one could have hoped. And so,
good.
yeah, so it was good. So this, that's never super fun, but it's the reality of us.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, what was the alternative? You don't have the conversation and then you just have continued anxiety build. That's not good.
Yeah, and then my team, they laugh at me. I always say I don't like stuff, and I do my hands like this. I don't like stuff, and I call stuff. It's the unsaid,
Oh, yes.
weird. I don't like stuff. Stuff makes me crazy. Like let's get the stuff out. Like let's not operate in a place of stuff. I don't want that,
I
right?
love that.
I hate stuff. I hate it in my personal life. I don't, it's like, are we okay? Like I do that thing because
Okay.
yeah,
You know, it's interesting. So I did one more podcast earlier today and we talked about energy there a little bit too. So it must be in like the air or something. I don't know. But basically what it is, it's like bad energy. Like you're basically sensing into there's stuff out there. Like it feels like wrong. And you intuitively know, like, are we okay? Because I don't feel okay. Like, let's get through the stuff.
right. And yeah, and I've gotten better at this too. Um, I recognize that there may be stuff and people may not be ready to deal with it or talk about it. And so that would infuriate me sometimes, not that they didn't want to talk about it, but that they denied the presence of stuff. Like you're gaslighting me.
Oh, yeah, not good.
Right. But one of my tribe, she said to me, she said, if you know that something's going on, then why does it bother you that they're not saying it, that they're not admitting it? You know this. Why are you taking that so personally? And I was like, oh, why am I? And I was like, that is something for me to consider. Like, I need to free myself of that. I know it. They either don't know how to articulate it or don't want to, but I know. And if I know that, then why is my safety and my comfort contingent upon them actually saying it? And
That's
she,
interesting.
it's interesting. And she was like, is it because you want to be right? And I was like, oh. So I'm not
Done yet. You're still
I've
working.
not sorted my way through that, but it was something for me to think about. Because if I know that part of it is just a control thing too. Like I don't like being blindsided.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I appreciate you like saying, hey, here's something even I'm working through, which is the ability to leave the stuff. I'm clear on my side, but they can't clear up their side of the street. And it's like a little messy on their side because you want to go over to their side and be like, let's clean it all up. Let's clean it all
yep,
up on both sides
yep,
of the street. And you can't do that.
yep.
Okay, let's turn to joy because I told you I was going to talk about this. So, everyone, if you're watching the YouTube video of us, I want to talk about joy for a minute because we often, as working women, are just like go, 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 and the to-do list and the kids and the blah, blah, blah. But Robyn does something that brings her joy, and I want her to share about it. So, share what brings you joy?
I love fresh flowers. And so I have fresh flowers almost every day in my house,
That's amazing.
all over the house. And my my husband has reconciled it. He's like it's that budget is not going away. My son, who's almost 16, is like, huh? He does not get. He's like, they're gonna die, and I'm like, I know, but while they're alive, they're so awesome. So I get fresh flowers all over the house.
Oh, that's so, it reminds everyone, including me, to find something that, for you, it's not small. Fresh flowers are a mandated part of joy
And
in your life, right?
then
It's absolutely mandated.
we made it
And find your thing, find your mandate that bring your joy mandate. What brings you joy and make sure that it's in your life. So I have to ask before we wrap, what is your favorite flower? If you have one.
calla lily.
Oh, so pretty.
Mhm.
So, so pretty. The beautiful shape of a calla lily is just absolutely.
And then they come like depending on the season and the breed, I guess, they come in these different colors.
Mm,
Like a really, really wide array of colors. I had some deep purple ones for my bouquet and my wedding.
mm.
Just gorgeous. So callas are my favorite.
Okay, anyone who's a florist who's listening has to call on Robyn. I don't know how many are out there, but hey.
I love I adore fresh flowers. I really do.
Oh, that's amazing. And is this something new in Chicago or no? This is like traveled with you all through your life.
So, you know what? It's an interesting question. I've always really loved fresh flowers, but I think I really dialed it up since I've gotten to Chicago, especially when I first moved here. I just needed to find nuggets of joy. I needed to find
Yes.
um, uh, things that made me feel joyful and brightened up because I was feeling not so lonely, but a little bit alone.
Yes.
And I was like, how can I, I'd moved into my husband's bachelor pad, God help me. And I was like, there's also
This
sort
has got to go.
of, right, there's also sort of the home decor piece of it, but also like, I needed to feel, um, I needed to see something that I knew made me happy. And so I am, and I'm telling you, like Trader Joe's has great flowers. Um, Costco tends to do roses really well. You can
Okay.
get 2 dozen for like 20 bucks.
Oh, not bad.
Not bad, not bad. And they do really well. They do really nicely. Yeah.
Okay, and just FYI, we don't get paid by Trader Joe's or Costco,
No,
no
we don't.
affiliate link. We're just spreading the love today, like for all the people.
I,
Anyway, yeah,
I
I
wish
just love it. Yeah, you were just sharing. I just want people to be like, are they getting paid by Trader Joe's?
they're
No, we
not.
are not getting paid by Trader Joe's.
No.
Anyway, so what are 1 to 2 ways that you believe women can be braver at work today?
Be who you are. I think at work we um, tend to reflexively make ourselves smaller, and I
Hmm.
say make yourselves bigger. Like attack work, attack that meeting, attack that you know dude who's being a dude. Like like he's a bear, and you got to make yourself bigger to scare him off. I say don't be afraid of that. I really do. I think. And I know that I say that from a place of privilege, right? I absolutely recognize that. But I think it people need to sit in this, sit in the energy and the strengthening energy that we have inherently as women.
Hmm.
And we are so trained and taught and socialized to quiet that down. And I think
Mm.
we should make it louder.
Yes, I'm hearing be yourself and like also don't be afraid to be bigger, right? Like,
Bigger.
bigger. Don't like shut yourself down. Like we talked about that armoring,
Yep.
like that whole like be bigger, be bigger. So I love those be
Take up
you and be
all
bigger.
the space.
Take up all the space. I love it.
All the space. 100%.
So how can women connect with you and see all the great things you're doing at RJC?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So Robyn Jackson Malone, Robyn Jackson Malone. So is RJC. RJ Communications is on LinkedIn. Um, those are the best ways
Hmm.
um, to kind of track and see what we're doing. Got some fun stuff going on. Um, and then we are on LinkedIn is probably the most active social. We have some other social stuff that we do, but mostly it's LinkedIn is the best way to find us.
Okay, well, I know all of my listeners hang out on LinkedIn, so we'll connect with you there. And Robyn, thanks for just like really adding great energy to my day. It's been so fun, and I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Jen. This was super fun. I love it.
Well, that's a wrap on my discussion with Robyn today. I hope you found our conversation both valuable and inspiring. Here are a few questions to think about or journal on until next time. So, when was the last time you did something outside of your comfort zone? If it's been a while, what is one thing you can do that you're slightly scared of? I'm not saying jump off a mountain unless you want to do that. Please be safe. I'm a mom, after all. Maybe you want to take a trip. Maybe you want to explore even, your own area and you're just a little scared to do it on your own. Whatever it is, what is something you can do that you're slightly scared of? I promise it'll just be invigorating and life-giving. And of course, I would love to know. This is stuff I love to know about. Send me a DM on socials when you do the thing. And so the next thing is Robyn mentioned that she loves flowers because they bring her joy and happiness. So as a result, they are a non-negotiable for her. So what is one of your non-negotiables? Again, you can send me a DM if you'd like to chit chat about it. And then finally, what vulnerable step can you take in the next week to build or grow your community? So remember, community can make a big difference in our lives, whether that is your overall happiness, finding your next job. I got introduced to my husband of over 20 years from my brother, really. So that's family. But he was friends with my brother at the time. Again, that's a whole other podcast. But you see how community is so important. So don't go it alone. Build or cultivate your community. So as a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, show up, get outside of your comfort zone, and be brave.